I can't force you to want to grow up. And with that, we got the last words from the last fight filmed between KB and Edmond in season 9 of Love is Blind. And most importantly, a lesson in the difference between good and bad obligations in our relationships. Their journey highlighted this pattern that while it gets a lot of praise from outsiders, it keeps you miserable. That said, it's been super encouraging to come online and see people articulate the kinds of inconvenience they are embracing to have community in their life. But what has been discouraging on this show is just how long the Black women will carry these imbalances in their relationship in the sake of being good partners. KB and Edmund's relationship dynamic reminded a lot of you of AD and Clay's relationship, and so the question was this going to end differently? Both of these ladies understood that in order to have people to call on, you have to be a member of their village. Find love and happiness, you do end up sometimes sacrificing where you live or some of your time freedom. To grow a family costs money, it costs sleep. Friendship, allyship, relationship, they all require some kind of obligation over time. And we know that a frictionless life is a lonely and boring one. But in romantic relationships, sometimes boring can be really good. Especially if you were socialized growing up as a Black woman or a good woman. There's a kind of friction that those women are expected to absorb in their romantic relationships with men. This emotional frictional debt, it comes from the community emotionally neglecting young boys who become men. So who pays for that emotional debt? The female partners. It can absolutely be more complicated than one parent dropping the ball, right? We have whole communities that are experiencing different forms of lack of mental health care or oppression that makes it difficult for the family to focus on certain aspects of raising their children. With cruel policy or justice systems that are not interested in rehabilitative justice or community care. And then there's also just a general laziness wrapped up in boys are easier. It's the idea that when you're raising young sons, you're just not going to have any emotional drama. And of course, they're much easier to raise if you never engage with their interior life. If you don't combat any of the messages that their culture or phone is sending them. And if from small, you limit your son's emotional range of expression, you just have less to deal with. Edmund's feelings, his hopes, his fear, they matter, but they're not his romantic partner's responsibility to manage or regulate. The reason that we saw a lack of chemistry between these two is because this relationship wasn't functioning as a site of mutual friendship and partnership. So what was happening? Of course, the answer to that will include spoilers. You've been warned. Edmond is a sensitive guy. He has a lot of trauma with his family and his mother, and he has this through line where he's not been able to depend on her to come through for him. Even at his own wedding, he was excited for her to be there, and she just couldn't make it. There was a time period when Edmund was growing up, his mom was unable to care for him, so he was in foster care. This was, of course, traumatic to him, and later when we meet his 5th grade teacher, Miss Jessie, we realize the extent to which other people had to step in, and how motherless he felt. Jessie was the one who noticed that Edmund couldn't necessarily always count on a meal. He didn't have a support system to help him do his homework. Jessie was the one who would feed him and tutor him and just look out for him. Edmund got this sense that if it wasn't for this random kindness, he might have fallen through the cracks. What we sense is his ongoing anxiety that people might just leave him. From the beginning in the pods, Edmund is telling us that he's looking for someone to build the family he never had. But who is he building that family for? In the pods where you don't have the pressure of making meals, going to work, doing life, all that sort of thing, there is a blossoming of some of these people's personalities that just doesn't happen when you leave the pods. KB fell in love with an Edmund in the pods that she later just could not find. Edmund in the pods didn't need her to step in as a social worker or mother. He was getting his needs met. He felt secure and safe. Once he left the pods, KB and her social worker background made it all too easy for Edmund to start siphoning off some emotional regulation and work from her. And he started to use the relationship as the substitute for a kind of mother-son relationship. Most of us in the audience were not therapists, but we could all see how he was approaching her emotional needs. He could not see her feelings and needs as if it was that of a mutual adult. KB would try to express her emotions and her feelings and how his actions affected their relationship, and he just couldn't remember any of it. Kids do this with their parents because they're emotionally underdeveloped and mentally in a different developmental state. We struggle to see our moms as people with real or permanent feelings. We struggle to see how our actions stress them out or connect that to what we're doing. We don't right away connect how what we did an hour ago might still affect our emotional and stress levels 2 hours later. And we watch this play out with Edmund. KB spends a lot of time parenting. She's the one who has to bring up the conflict and address it. She's the one explaining emotional concepts to Edmund. And it's her who's educating him on time and place for dealing with conflict. He was literally throwing tantrums. By the time we get to episode 11 and they have this last snowmobile date before the weddings, there's a breaking point. Prior to filming this scene, they had had a fight. KB notices that Edmond, who had previously ignored her and was all upset, is now, with the cameras on, happy-go-lucky and enjoying his mountain view. He has transformed for the cameras. He's thrilled to be on the mountaintop, exploring, being on the snowmobile, and getting his hot chocolate. And there's this excitement that comes with him only paying attention to his own emotions. Edmond is capable of articulating and understanding what people can do, because he does this at his wedding when he talks to Jessie very eloquently about what she meant to him and how that changed his life. He really struggles to do that for KB, and he doesn't seem to have any emotional object permanence when it comes to his romantic relationship. If something is not an immediate concern to him, he doesn't seem to connect to it emotionally. Is it his fault that that wasn't modeled to him? No. Is it his responsibility to take time and learn how to deal with that before he gets a wife? Yes. When KB mentions that she's going off to go get them some hot chocolate, he does not offer to go with her or help her. Instead, he just admires the view. When she comes back, he gleefully takes his hot chocolate and is immediately concerned with that while she struggles to get down. KB is not happy about that and, of course, brings up how he was dismissive and avoidant before the date. This is where she gives him a warning. She says she can love him through the good and the bad, but he can't keep dismissing the bad. The fight continues. Edmond half-heartedly tries to apologize, but then KB's like, you're not apologizing because you don't mean it, and so he takes it back. And then he turns the argument on her as if she's the problem. It's a confusing, difficult to follow argument on his end, though it's very clear on hers. He is just not truly acknowledging what his adult partner is saying. And KB is like, I am tired, and I am tired of fighting for something you don't seem to be fighting for. KB is fighting for conflict resolution and for her feelings to be seen and heard. Edmond is fighting to not be perceived as bad so he doesn't get rejected from the relationship. What we keep seeing is an Edmond who is concerned with keeping KB around rather than respecting her on the grounds she is asking him to. And this kind of thing, it can go uncorrected for so long because of how we socialize men. The desire to enjoy the benefits of a relationship with a woman does not require you to feel like you need to protect her. There is a lot of emotional mileage Edmond realizes he could get out of KB, who, as a social worker and as a Black woman in America, has been trained to regulate her emotions and help other people. She is literally expected, socially and professionally, to be a problem solver. And we're all watching with this hope that KB does not continue to maybe confuse sacrificing and loving someone in a marriage with being unequally yoked with someone who is emotionally immature. We watched this season hoping that KB would realize and demand that a marriage should require as its foundation respect and protection and maturity. We were hoping she would reject the friction. Thankfully, KB does tap into the freedom that Nap Bishop, Trisha Hersey herself, offers. No, she wasn't on the show, but she did write a book. It's called We Will Rest, and she asks, how do you find rest in this particular oppressive system? One that wants you to grind endlessly. The Nap Bishop says, become an escape artist. And this is a reversal of what we saw with AD, because AD got up on that altar and she was willing to make do with Clay's foolishness. The only reason that didn't work out is because Clay rejected her at the altar. Thank God, she seems to be doing fine now. She would have married that man in the name of being the good, long-suffering woman, the one who was a stepping stone for a man's emotional growth. Now, of course, there's some question as to how KB chose to do this. Some people felt, why did she wait to the altar, because now there's no penalty for breaking it off before then. But KB does give a kind and empathetic speech to Edmond, and she affirms him. She tries to leave with both of their dignity intact. She's clear, she's concise in this breakup, there's no confusion. She was not a coward, no one had false hope. One plausible defense that I could see for her deciding to take the experiment to its absolute endpoint is that she and Edmond had already been through so much. If they finished the show, they would get a longer edit. They could both financially profit off of that in the future. And Rachel Lindsay of Bachelorette fame has said that she personally didn't even think production saw this wedding happening. In her conversation with Two Black Girls and One Rose, they are all talking about how Edmond was probably supposed to be this zany, eccentric character that was in the pods and then never made it past there. Is production off the hook for casting men that are emotionally not ready to be married for a marriage show? No. Edmond's emotional immaturity and fragility went beyond the imperfections that you find in a regular healthy relationship. His time and some of the men, time spent addressing first the emotional neglect, practicing non-transactional relationships and community, and getting clear as to where you are in your trauma journey, that might be more helpful than going on national television where people could make fun of you. But to Edmond's credit, his finest hour was this wedding. He took time for himself, he didn't crash out, and he affirmed KB too. It was great for KB to recognize the misery in her relationship and know it had nothing to do with a lack of trying on her part. Allowing herself to feel that misery, it was an escape route. A win is a win.